Thank you, Mr. Guerra. We now recognize Mrs. Hinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, last year when you came before this subcommittee, I did ask you about concerning reports of Chinese nationals crossing our open border. I brought this concern to you directly, Mr. Secretary, because President Biden did not do anything to prevent this issue. It has become worse. And now Chinese nationals, as you may be aware, are the largest and fastest growing group attempting to cross into our country. But I am concerned that your testimony in your budget does not acknowledge that fact or directly do anything to address it. Is that correct?
Congresswoman, let me be clear. Number one, any individual who poses a threat to public safety or national security is a priority for detention, number one. Number two, for the first time, I had an engagement with my counterpart from the People's Republic of China to ensure that China would begin to accept removal flights so that we can deliver a consequence regime for individuals from the People's Republic of China who do not have a legal basis to remain.
What was the outcome of that conversation?
Who do not have a legal basis to remain in the United States, and those discussions are ongoing, and we actually did effect one flight most recently, the first time in a number of years.
Unfortunately, we have to judge the Chinese Communist Party based upon their actions and not their words. We know just recently 2 Chinese nationals were arrested in Iowa on a nationwide fraud case they were involved in. One of them was believed to have crossed the southwest border and was released into the country, and they made their way to Iowa and joined in this national fraud activity. And I know Iowans and Americans do deserve transparency and accountability for all of your department's actions, which have essentially alerted our adversaries our borders are wide open, allowing criminals to enter our country and make their way into Iowa. I don't think there's an excuse for having the same conversation 2 years in a row, and I'd like to see more stringent action from the administration concerning Chinese Communist Party nationals coming across our border. Another action I find distressing is that the administration is diverting a record number of federal air marshals to the southwest border to perform administrative duties. This leaves Americans unguarded on commercial flights. I spoke directly with the air marshals about the safety concerns posed by diverting them to the southern border, allowing for a shortage of air marshals on flights, denying them their sworn duty to protect Americans in the air. So, Mr. Secretary, you dance around calling the crisis at our southern border not only a humanitarian crisis, but a crisis. So if you do not see it as that, why are you deploying our federal air marshals, our FAMs, to the border and other law enforcement agencies to the border?
Congresswoman, I do understand the challenges at the border, and I certainly don't dance around them. As a matter of fact,
would you call it a crisis at the southern border?
Yes, I would. And as a matter of fact, I work every single day with the men and women in the Department of Homeland Security to only strengthen the security of our southern border as well as a northern border. And we deploy personnel from different parts of our department whenever the situation so warrants and the situation at the border so warrants.
When I look at my visits to the southern border, I've been twice. I had a chance to meet with the brave men and women at the CBP, as well as some ICE agents, but I was increasingly disturbed by how many you're pulling from other agencies, not just our FAMs, but also from TSA and FEMA. So I think that I'm pleased to hear you call it a crisis. I think it's the first time I've heard you publicly acknowledge it. But I think that we continue to put Americans' lives at risk by pulling these federal air marshals off of these flights, again, leaving them uncovered. I think that the federal air marshals certainly communicated to me that they've had enough of this. They see it as deception and harmful actions, so I'll continue working to prohibit the ability to deploy those necessary air marshals down to the border. They need to be back on flights, Mr. Secretary, until you, again, certify that the border is in a crisis state. So thank you so much for appearing before our committee today. I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Hinson. At this point, Mr. Guest.